National Youth Organizer, Chairman of the NPP USA, Chairman of the NPP New York and New Jersey, Chairman as well, executives of the NPP USA, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, representatives from the Haitian Embassy who are here, like to acknowledge your presence and thank you for your presence. I think it is really a testament to the bonds that tie us between Africa and the diaspora, in particular between Ghana and Haiti. And I think we are thankful for those bonds, and we will endeavor to continue keeping those bonds alive as we all together strive for economic independence. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are all here because we all love Ghana. Ghana belongs pretty much to all of us, all shades of political opinion, all shades, all tribes and ethnic groups and religious organizations and so on. It belongs to all of us. In fact, in my language, Mampoli, we say Tiza Buni, and this is something that I've gotten repeated on the campaign trail as I've gone through Ghana, and it is suddenly becoming a word that we want everybody to understand that this Ghana belongs to all of us. So just to make me feel like I've not missed home too much, I'd like you all to repeat after me. Tiza Buni. Tiza Buni. Tiza Buni. Thank you very much, and please give yourself a round of applause. That's very nice. We are facing some major economic challenges as a country. But this should not really be the case, or this should not have been the case. Ghana as a country has been blessed with so many raw materials. We've had gold, cocoa, timber, and more recently we've discovered oil. In fact, over the last 3 years, this country has witnessed almost a doubling in cocoa prices. We've also seen a doubling in gold prices. And we've become an oil producer. And so we should really naturally expect a better Ghana. It goes without saying. That is what was promised by the NDC government, and that really is what we should have seen, given the very benign economic or global economic developments compared to the situation in 2008. But we've not really seen that better Ghana. Agriculture has declined significantly. In fact, we've moved from 7.4% growth rate that we had around 2008 to 0.8%. 0.8%. Food crop production has declined dramatically, and fisheries is negative 8.7% growth. It's really a collapse of the sector. So the real sector of the economy, an agri employs over 60% of our people, is really in decline. Manufacturing is also in decline, and services are stagnant. So we really are not seeing the sort of growth in the economy that will result in employment. And so the increase in unemployment that we've really noticed in our country is not surprising. You cannot have job growth with declining agriculture, declining manufacturing, and stagnant services. So the growth rates that we are seeing really are driven by oil and hide what is really happening in the real sector. We are also seeing a major increase in the cost of living in Ghana. The prices of any commodity you can think of have kept rising up and up and up, from fuel prices, cement prices, fertilizer prices, and so on. These increases are really having a major impact on our people. It's increasing the suffering of our people, notwithstanding the claim by the NDC that they have achieved single-digit inflation. It is not consistent with everything that we see in terms of the data for interest rates and so exchange rates and so on. So we are having an increase in cost of living, an increase in unemployment. We are also seeing that in the midst of all this, there's rampant corruption that is taking hold in our country. Supplies contracts are being over-invoiced. A 6-unit classroom block, which used to cost the equivalent of about 70,000 Ghana cedis in 2008, 3 years later, it is costing 250,000 Ghana cedis. That's saying 6-unit classroom block. And a lot of these over-invoicing of contracts have become the norm. You've also heard the talk about judgment debt, what I call the Wyomization of our economy, where you are having people claim for debts and getting paid for debts that really were not incurred and for no work done. That has really increased liquidity in our economy, and it is not surprising, as far as I am concerned, that all of these developments have resulted in weakened confidence and a loss of confidence in our economy, to the extent that our exchange rate has taken a very big hit, and the Ghana cedi currently is the worst performing currency in Africa. And so we have major challenges, but these major challenges should not really have been the case, as I have said. In addition to having cocoa prices double, gold prices double, and discovering oil, and having received almost $1 billion for oil over the last couple of years for our budget. The government has, in addition, over these last 3 years, borrowed more money than all governments put together since independence. In the last 3 years, this government has borrowed more money than all governments put together between Nkrumah and Kufuor. So we've had, at the time this government came into office, the total debt between Nkrumah and Kufuor was 9 billion Ghana cedis. After 3 years, the total debt has gone up to 25 billion Ghana cedis. And you ask yourself, as you go around the country, where has all this money gone? Where can you see this money in terms of projects that have actually been done, that you can say this is where the money has gone? And it is very surprising, because you don't really see any projects on the ground. There's really not much. The major infrastructure is still in disrepair. We still have major water problems, major power problems, road problems, and you don't know where this money has gone. And I think it is a gargantuan question, as Ghanaians would say. Where has the money gone? So, ladies and gentlemen, there is good reason for Ghanaians to change the NDC government, because we vote government to essentially come and solve problems and reduce our suffering. We don't vote governments to come in and add to our problems and increase our suffering. And this is why we want the NPP to be voted into office in 2012 for Nana Akufo-Addo to lead us on a new direction. So, ladies and gentlemen, The NPP, under the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo, wants us to move in a new direction. We want to build a globally competitive economy. We want to build an economy that is integrated into the global economy. And it has also to be competitive. In doing so, in attempting to forge this path, we really have to think outside the box. We need a paradigm shift in our country. We have to think like the way we think when we are playing soccer. When we are playing soccer, we play by certain rules of the game. You know, we are very competitive in soccer. I mean, many countries actually do not relish the prospect of playing Ghana, the Black Stars. I mean, we all play by the rules. We know we have to field 11 players, including a goalkeeper. We know what the offside is and what not to do and what to do. We train. We look for our talented players all over the world. We bring them, whether it's from Norway or from Germany. We look for them to make them part of this team to compete. And this is something that we should use the same thinking to apply when we do our economic development. It is not only soccer that matters, but health matters, education matters, engineering matters, and we have to use all of our talents, especially the talents we have in the diaspora, to infuse into our economy to build it up, because nobody else is going to do it for us. So Nana Akufo-Addo wants us to embark on this journey with this new paradigm as we move into a 21st century economy. We want to restore trust in government. We know that in government today, you know, a lot of contractors get awarded contracts, they try to perform, and after that, they are not paid. This really hurts businesses. We want to make that history. A lot of people are hired, nurses and teachers, and don't end up getting paid for a year, 2 years even. We want to make that history. We want to make sure that if there is no money, then don't award the contract in the first place, so that people can survive and look for other things to do rather than being misled. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the major rules of the game when you want to build a competitive economy is to make sure your economy is structured, is more formalized. In Ghana, as in many other African countries, we have too much informality. We have a little bit of chaotic structure. What am I talking about? In any economy that you see that works, you have three major things that are taking place. One, every member of this society is uniquely identified, either by a national identification number or a social security number, you know, so that you can tell, you know, in a society where anybody can assume a new identity as and when they wish, there would be no discipline. You know, you will not fear the police. You will not fear going to the bank and defaulting on a loan, because you can just change your name and go to another bank. So you need to have very unique identification for everybody, right from birth. And this is why the National Identification Authority was put in place. And it is so important, it's so fundamental. Unfortunately, the program that was envisaged for the National Identification Authority has totally not been executed. And I think it is really a major omission. And God willing, should Nana Akufo-Addo be voted as president and the NPP in government, this is a project that we intend to execute in the first year. it is so critical to build the foundation of this economy. Secondly, to have a formal economy, you really need a system of street addresses. You know, you need to be able to show an address for every residential and office accommodation. Now, these things, nobody will tell you. I mean, no donor is going to come and say, by the way, Ghana, you don't have street addresses or you don't have national ID numbers or social security numbers. These are things that your competitors are not going to tell you. If you come in to play the football match and you come in without a goalkeeper, they'll keep scoring you, right? They wouldn't tell you you don't have a goalkeeper. You have to play by the rules, right? If you come in and you don't have a goalkeeper, it's your fault. So we will immediately, with the help of the technology that is available with Google Maps and so on today, putting in street address systems is so easy right now, and we've got to move on it as a first-year priority of the next Nana Akufo-Addo government. Thirdly, you cannot have a formalized economy and a more structured economy if most of your transactions are taking place by cash. The cash-based economy is one that allows us to evade taxes and really do a lot of informality in the economy. And it is time for us in Ghana to move away from a predominantly cash economy to a system of electronic payment. And that will support everything that we are doing. Thankfully, at the time that I was at the Bank of Ghana, we put in place the infrastructure to do this. And we acquired an infrastructure that, interestingly, is probably, one of the most advanced in the world. This infrastructure that will help us move from the cash to the electronic payment will work in the rural areas even without electricity. And it is in place. And we again intend to roll it out in the very first year of this of the next administration, if God permits, and Nana Akufo-Addo is president. You know, so these are critical elements when we say the formalization of this economy is so fundamental to everything that we are going to do. It's fundamental to the flow of credit and the growth of businesses. You just think about it today in the United States that you're all living in. What happens if you got out tomorrow and all your addresses disappeared and nobody could tell, where anybody lives? The economy would collapse. That is just the bottom line. You will not have pizza delivery. You will not have flour delivery. This economy would collapse, basically. And this is what many countries are not understanding, the importance of that formalization and structure to the development of economies. It's something that you can easily forget, and many countries have forgotten. For many years, they try to attack other problems without going back to the fundamentals. And I think the formalization is something we are going to do. The next major area we are attacking in the course of building this modern competitive economy in Ghana is going to be economic transformation. For years, we have relied so much on the export of just raw material. Raw material exports would only get us so far, and that means not very far. Countries that have developed into competitive economies globally have added value to these raw materials. And so we've got to move from just this Gaggesberg economy, as Nana Akufo-Addo describes it, to a more modern industrialized economy. It sounds very, optimistic. It sounds a bit, wishful. That how can you move from this agricultural raw material producing economy to a modern industrialized economy? Ladies and gentlemen, as wishful as it sounds, it's a real possibility. It is something that other countries have done, and with the right policies, we are going to do it. With a modernized agriculture, we have really comparative advantage in agro-processing. We have With the discovery of oil and gas, we have an advantage in moving into the petrochemical industry. With our bauxite, we've got and Valco, we can move again into an integrated aluminium industry, and also with pharmaceuticals. And some of these areas are areas that we can really give an incentive for a major push in Ghana towards industrialization. How is this going to happen? The goal is quite simple. We want to make Ghana in the short to medium term the manufacturing hub of West Africa. This is where we want to start before we move globally. We will make Ghana the manufacturing hub of West Africa. But how are we going to do this? With policy. First of all, we've got to attack our energy problem. You cannot be an industrialized country, a manufacturing hub of West Africa, if you have persistent problems with energy supply. And so we've got to resolve this by really allowing the private sector to come in and take up the mantle of providing the necessary energy supply and giving that. So we recognize this as a major issue that we are going to deal with. Secondly, you develop a manufacturing base with skills. That is really the issue. That is that you can only have skills and technology. I'll first deal with skills. How are we going to do this? First, we have to build our education system that is again oriented towards a skills development policy. Nana Akufo-Addo was in Germany to look at the apprenticeship programs. I've been here and I've taken a look in Charlotte at some apprenticeship programs also, and we want to see what works best for Ghana. But we've got to move away from just the book studying in classes to a lot more hands-on skills development with the necessary infrastructure to allow our youth to undertake apprenticeships in various areas, whether it's plumbing or welding, that will allow us to compete in a modern industrialized economy. So apprenticeship schemes will become very critical as we move forward. Education. 3 out of 4 people who start primary school do not finish senior high school. And a lot of it is related to lack of finances for people to complete in a lot of the poorer parts of our country. And this is why Nana Akufo-Addo has made it very clear that under his administration, Ghana is going to see free senior high school education. We do it. We would introduce free senior high school education with a focus on quality and a focus also on the teachers. You don't just want free education which is poor quality. You want free education which is good quality. And thankfully, we have done the numbers and we are very comfortable that rather than paying judgment debt of 420 million, we would rather use that money and finance free education. The third part of our skills, we have 3 elements: apprenticeship, there's education, quality education, and the third is our diaspora. We've got to really stop thinking about our diaspora as second-class citizens and begin to bring their skills and attract their skills back home to help us develop this country. We want to build an economy that is integrated into the global environment. The diaspora are already helping other countries build that same type of economy. And so we need to just plug into the diaspora to help us get to where we are going. I mean, the amount of human capital here is frightening. When I look at table by table, it's just incredible. And this is just a sample of what you have in just the United States. And then you have Germany, you have the UK. We really are blessed as a country, and we better take advantage of the blessings of God for this country. So we will move very quickly to put in place measures that allow our diaspora to fully participate in the development of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, the next aspect of building a competitive manufacturing industry is technology. You cannot compete in the 21st century with 18th century technology. So we are going to move very quickly to put in the framework to allow our manufacturing firms to acquire 21st century technology, to bring them, to help them to finance the acquisition of such technology, as well, ladies and gentlemen, to allow these things to come in with very little hassle. One of the things that Japan did in 1868 with Emperor Meiji coming to the throne was basically to realize that, in 1868, before then you had a Tokugawa regime in Japan, and they thought they were the most advanced country in the world, but they realized that by 1868 that they were very behind. And so the Emperor Meiji had a policy of Japan going to acquire technology. And this is the sort of era Ghana needs to get in to help our manufacturing firms do this. Ladies and gentlemen, we have taken a very close look at the whole issue of those incentives and the import duties on a lot of equipment that is coming into Ghana for health, for education, for manufacturing. These duties are way too high. And the economics of the duties is a bit faulty. The duties at the ports are high because our tax base is very narrow. And so governments just go and sit at the ports, and that is very lazy economic management. You sit at the port, rather than addressing the fundamental problem of increasing the tax base, you sit at the port, and whenever you need revenue, you increase the duties. But guess what? When you increase duties in that manner, people who are supposed to bring in equipment and others to set up businesses to grow your economy are discouraged. They do not bring them in. It would make better economic sense to allow the businesses to be set up, employ people, produce, make a profit, and then you can tax the business. But when you begin with taxing the businesses first before they have actually started production, you are going to kill that very goose that is supposed to lay this golden egg for us. And so we've got it backwards in terms of the economics. And this is why we are moving very quickly to formalize the economy. If we formalize the economy, we broaden the tax base. And I'm happy to announce that under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration, there will be no import duty on equipment for health, education, and manufacturing in Ghana. Because it just makes sense. It just makes sense. The economics of it, it will help Ghana become the most attractive destination in West Africa for people to set up for manufacturing. And we believe in that going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also going to look very closely at our ports. The ports have become really, again, an area of frustration for businesses. And if we are going to become a competitive economy, the ports have to be efficient. I talked to a gentleman who lives in Ghana but has his factory in Vietnam. And I was asking why. He's manufacturing mosquito nets, employing 3,000 people in Vietnam. And he could have been doing so in Ghana. And he said, our ports are too inefficient. If he follows our ports, he cannot meet his orders and all of that. So he would rather set up in Vietnam and export from there rather than set up in Ghana. And it's very sad, but this is someone who lives in Ghana. So we've got to look at the efficiency of the ports, benchmark it to world-class standards, and make sure that the ports are really there to help the economy grow, but not to frustrate business in this. In the area of housing, ladies and gentlemen, we really intend to make sure that we earmark a lot of clusters of land banks with clear title for people, both businesses and individuals who want to acquire land. The process of land acquisition is really too cumbersome. And to solve the housing problem, you really need very clear title to land. I'm sure a lot of you have tried to buy land and build houses in Ghana, and you can tell stories about that. And to encourage the diaspora, especially to come home, we know we have to solve this land problem. And as far as, so we need to acquire large chunks of land with clear title, and then be able to sell this to people who are coming in to buy land, so that there's a hassle-free process. And also, you know, you see that neighborhoods like cantonments and Labone, all they have is just basic infrastructure. That's what makes them desirable neighborhoods. We are not building those neighborhoods. So these land banks that we are acquiring, we will intend to put in the infrastructure, the roads, the water, the electricity, that will make them the cantonments or the trasacos. These are just, you know, exaggerated high-class areas. They just have tarred roads and water and electricity, which should be normal for any economy. So we intend to move this forward and deal with that. We also, ladies and gentlemen, intend to make sure you would have heard of the STX Korea Housing Project. Have you heard of the STX? The STX Korea Housing Project was a project to build some 200,000 houses and was given for $10 billion. Initial 30,000 houses for $1.5 billion. And it fell through. Despite all protestations that this wasn't a good deal, the government proceeded with it and only realized at the end that it was not. But what is interesting about the STX Korea deal, if you read the agreement, is the sort of incentives that the government of Ghana was prepared to provide the Korean company to build these houses for us. I mean, land, infrastructure on the land, and so on. I mean, duty-free on raw materials for housing, all of that were part of the incentive for the STX Korea company to build the houses for us. Now, but if we can give these incentives to a foreign company, why can't we give these same incentives to the local Ghanaian companies who want to build houses for us? So, in the area of houses, if it is good for Korea, it must be good for Ghana. And so the very incentive we want to give to STX, we will also be providing to the real estate developers in Ghana to help build the stock of houses in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, we really also intend to increase the number of people who are banked in our economy. As I've said, the formalization of the economy would also mean that you are moving away from cash to electronic payment. Only about 20% of our population has bank accounts. And that is way too small, but once we move into electronic payments and with the debit cards and so on, we will see a major increase in the people who are banked. And if you have more people banked, you'll have more savings in the banking system, you'll have lower interest rates, and so on. But the issue of the interest rates is very, very important for the private sector. Workers face very high interest rates, 30% and above for businesses. And really, when you think about it, how many businesses can be competitive in this global economy with such high interest rates? If you are competing against a firm which is located in Korea, where they have, 2%, 3% interest rates, and you have 30% interest rates, 35%, how do you compete? And so we really want to make sure that there is competition for the traditional banks. And we are going to encourage the setting up of financial institutions such as credit unions for the civil servants, for the teachers, for the nurses, for the forces, because that will drive down interest rates, because those will be non-profit institutions. And the banks will have to then compete with these other financial institutions, and that will force interest rates down. We'll discuss that more at a later stage of this campaign. But I just wanted to throw the issue in. As the time is really not on our side, we tend to move on with the Northern Development Plan, well-resourced, the Zongo Development Fund, well-resourced, and move the private sector agenda growing. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a lot of hope and excitement about the future of Ghana. I think this election is about our future. Let us come together to make Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo the next president and the NPP the next government. There is hope coming. There is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo coming. Thank you very much for your attention, and we will now move on to the fundraiser. Thank you.